Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't come back to the apartment, your things are already in storage. The locks are changed. We're done, Paige, please. His voice cracked as 200 guests watched in stunned silence. This is insane. You can't do this to me. Can't do this to you? I turned to face the crowd, my white wedding dress pristine under the church lights. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what my fiancé can do. He can lie about his parents being dead for 3 years. He can maintain a second relationship with another woman every single weekend. He can steal from our joint account to fund romantic getaways I was never invited to. And he can call me so trusting it's almost sad in text messages to his real fiancé. The gasps echoed through the church. Brett's face went from pale to gray, and the best part? I clicked my phone, and the projection screen behind us lit up. His supposedly dead mother is sitting right there in the back row. Would you like to stand up, Lynette? A woman in an expensive suit rose from her seat, her expression cold as ice. Hello, son. Surprised to see me at your wedding? That's when Brett Caldwell's legs gave out entirely. My name is Paige Montgomery, and I'm 29 years old. Welcome to Revenge with Alice. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to stories about people who stood up, fought back, and refused to be victims. Real stories. Real people. Real consequences. Before we dive into how I went from devoted fiancé to the woman who destroyed a con artist's entire life in front of 200 witnesses, I want to take a moment to appreciate every single one of you who've subscribed to this channel. Your support means everything. Every like, every comment, every share. You're not just watching stories, you're building a community of people who refuse to accept mistreatment. Thank you for being here, and for those of you watching but haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. Trust me, what happens in this story will make you want to follow along for every update. Now, let me say a quick prayer for all of you, because I believe in speaking blessings over the people who show up. May you find the courage this week to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. May you recognize your worth, even when others try to diminish it. May you walk away from anything that costs you your peace, and may you find the strength to choose yourself, always. May unexpected blessings find you, and may you never settle for less than you deserve. Amen. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 years before that church confrontation. 3 years before I became the woman who could look a liar in the eye and burn his world down without flinching. 3 years ago, I was different. Softer. More trusting. Some might say naive. I met Brett Caldwell at a networking event in Manhattan. One of those awkward professional mixers where everyone pretends to care about synergy and disruption while really just trying to make connections that mattered. He approached me at the bar. Let me guess, he said, his smile warm and disarming. You'd rather be anywhere else right now. I laughed despite myself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who feels the same way. He extended his hand. Brett Caldwell. Marketing consultant who hates networking events, Paige Montgomery. Financial analyst who's terrible at small talk. That's how it started. Easy. Natural. The kind of connection that feels rare enough to make you pay attention. We talked for 2 hours that night. About books, about ambitions, about the way the city looks at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. He was charming without being slick, confident without being arrogant. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner that turned into walking through Central Park until midnight. He told me about his career, his love of travel, his dream of starting his own consulting firm someday. I told him about my work, my small circle of friends, my tendency to overthink everything. I like that about you, he said as we sat on a bench overlooking the water. You're careful. You don't just throw yourself at people. Is that your way of saying I'm guarded? It's my way of saying you're worth getting to know. He kissed me that night. Soft and unhurried, like we had all the time in the world. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Within 6 months, he'd moved into my Brooklyn apartment, his boxes mixing with mine in that chaotic way that feels like building a life together. That's when he told me about his parents. It was a Saturday morning. We were having breakfast, still in our pajamas, when I casually mentioned that my mother kept asking when she'd get to meet his family. Brett's entire demeanor shifted. His shoulders tensed. His coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. That's not possible, he said quietly. What do you mean? He set down his cup carefully, like it might shatter if he wasn't gentle. My parents are gone, Paige. They died when I was 22. Car accident on the interstate. A drunk driver crossed the median, the air left my lungs. Oh my God, Brett. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I don't talk about it much. His voice had that wounded quality I'd learned to recognize so well. Raw. Fragile. Real enough to make me ache for him. It's been 7 years, but it never really gets easier, you know? I moved around the table and wrapped my arms around him. You don't have to explain anything. I shouldn't have pushed, you didn't push. You couldn't have known. He leaned into my embrace. They were good people. I prefer to remember them privately. Of course. Whatever you need. He pulled back and looked at me with eyes that seemed genuinely grateful. This is why I love you, Paige. You understand. You don't pry. You get it. I love you. It was the first time either of us had said it. I love you too, I whispered, and meant it completely. Looking back now, that moment makes my stomach turn. Not because of what he said, but because of how easily I accepted it. How quickly I wrapped my compassion around his lie and made it comfortable. How willingly I became complicit in my own deception. But I didn't know that then. Then, I only knew that the man I loved had suffered a terrible loss, and I would do everything in my power to make sure he never felt alone in his grief. The months that followed were good. Better than good. We fell into an easy rhythm, work during the week, lazy Sundays together, occasional trips to nearby cities for weekend getaways. He was attentive and affectionate. He remembered small things I mentioned in passing. He surprised me with my favorite takeout when I had bad days at work. But there were cracks, even then. Small enough that I told myself they didn't matter, like the way his phone was always face down. Always password protected. Always off limits. I have client information on there, he'd explain when I joked about it. Confidentiality agreements. You understand. I understood. Of course I understood. I was the understanding girlfriend. Or the business trips that started increasing in frequency. Chicago again? I'd ask as he packed his bag every Thursday evening. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't come back to the apartment. Your things are already in storage. The locks are changed. We're done, Paige, please. His voice cracked as 200 guests watched in stunned silence. This is insane. You can't do this to me. Can't do this to you? I turned to face the crowd, my white wedding dress pristine under the church lights. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what my fiancé can do. He can lie about his parents being dead for 3 years. He can maintain a second relationship with another woman every single weekend. He can steal from our joint account to fund romantic getaways I was never invited to. And he can call me so trusting it's almost sad in text messages to his real fiancé. The gasps echoed through the church. Brett's face went from pale to gray, and the best part? I clicked my phone, and the projection screen behind us lit up. His supposedly dead mother is sitting right there in the back row. Would you like to stand up, Lynette? A woman in an expensive suit rose from her seat, her expression cold as ice. Hello, son. Surprised to see me at your wedding? That's when Brett Caldwell's legs gave out entirely. My name is Paige Montgomery, and I'm 29 years old. Welcome to Revenge with Alice. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to stories about people who stood up, fought back, and refused to be victims. Real stories. Real people. Real consequences. Before we dive into how I went from devoted fiancé to the woman who destroyed a con artist's entire life in front of 200 witnesses, I want to take a moment to appreciate every single one of you who've subscribed to this channel. Your support means everything. Every like, every comment, every share. You're not just watching stories, you're building a community of people who refuse to accept mistreatment. Thank you for being here, and for those of you watching but haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. Trust me, what happens in this story will make you want to follow along for every update. Now, let me say a quick prayer for all of you, because I believe in speaking blessings over the people who show up. May you find the courage this week to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. May you recognize your worth, even when others try to diminish it. May you walk away from anything that costs you your peace, and may you find the strength to choose yourself, always. May unexpected blessings find you, and may you never settle for less than you deserve. Amen. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 years before that church confrontation. 3 years before I became the woman who could look a liar in the eye and burn his world down without flinching. 3 years ago, I was different. Softer. More trusting. Some might say naive. I met Brett Caldwell at a networking event in Manhattan. One of those awkward professional mixers where everyone pretends to care about synergy and disruption while really just trying to make connections that mattered. He approached me at the bar. Let me guess, he said, his smile warm and disarming. You'd rather be anywhere else right now. I laughed despite myself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who feels the same way. He extended his hand. Brett Caldwell. Marketing consultant who hates networking events, Paige Montgomery. Financial analyst who's terrible at small talk. That's how it started. Easy. Natural. The kind of connection that feels rare enough to make you pay attention. We talked for 2 hours that night. About books, about ambitions, about the way the city looks at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. He was charming without being slick, confident without being arrogant. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner that turned into walking through Central Park until midnight. He told me about his career, his love of travel, his dream of starting his own consulting firm someday. I told him about my work, my small circle of friends, my tendency to overthink everything. I like that about you, he said as we sat on a bench overlooking the water. You're careful. You don't just throw yourself at people. I asked that your way of saying I'm guarded. It's my way of saying you're worth getting to know. He kissed me that night. Soft and unhurried, like we had all the time in the world. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Within 6 months, he'd moved into my Brooklyn apartment, his boxes mixing with mine in that chaotic way that feels like building a life together. That's when he told me about his parents. It was a Saturday morning. We were having breakfast, still in our pajamas, when I casually mentioned that my mother kept asking when she'd get to meet his family. Brett's entire demeanor shifted. His shoulders tensed. His coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. That's not possible, he said quietly. What do you mean? He set down his cup carefully, like it might shatter if he wasn't gentle. My parents are gone, Paige. They died when I was 22. Car accident on the interstate. A drunk driver crossed the median. The air left my lungs. Oh my God, Brett. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I don't talk about it much. His voice had that wounded quality I'd learned to recognize so well. Raw. Fragile. Real enough to make me ache for him. It's been 7 years, but it never really gets easier, you know? I moved around the table and wrapped my arms around him. You don't have to explain anything. I shouldn't have pushed. You didn't push. You couldn't have known. He leaned into my embrace. They were good people. I prefer to remember them privately. Of course. Whatever you need. He pulled back and looked at me with eyes that seemed genuinely grateful. This is why I love you, Paige. You understand. You don't pry. You get it. I love you. It was the first time either of us had said it. I love you too, I whispered, and meant it completely. Looking back now, that moment makes my stomach turn. Not because of what he said, but because of how easily I accepted it. How quickly I wrapped my compassion around his lie and made it comfortable. How willingly I became complicit in my own deception. But I didn't know that then. Then, I only knew that the man I loved had suffered a terrible loss, and I would do everything in my power to make sure he never felt alone in his grief. The months that followed were good. Better than good. We fell into an easy rhythm, work during the week, lazy Sundays together, occasional trips to nearby cities for weekend getaways. He was attentive and affectionate. He remembered small things I mentioned in passing. He surprised me with my favorite takeout when I had bad days at work. But there were cracks, even then. Small enough that I told myself they didn't matter, like the way his phone was always face down. Always password protected. Always off limits. I have client information on there, he'd explain when I joked about it. Confidentiality agreements. You understand. I understood. Of course I understood. I was the understanding girlfriend. Or the business trips that started increasing in frequency. Chicago again? I'd ask as he packed his bag every Thursday evening. At beaches. In bed together, her bare skin against his, the same body that came home to me every Sunday night. Videos of them cooking together in what looked like a family kitchen. Her laughing as he kissed her neck, his hands possessive on her waist. Timestamps. Every photo, every video, every moment of their relationship documented with dates that overlapped with ours. While I was grocery shopping for our dinners, he was taking her to expensive restaurants. While I was paying half our rent, he was buying her jewelry I'd never seen. While I was planning our future, he was living his real life somewhere else. I found his email next. Searched for Mom. Dozens of messages to Lynette Caldwell appeared. To Lynette Caldwell from Brett Caldwell. Subject: Thanksgiving plans. Mom, I'll be there Thursday with Tessa. She's excited to see everyone. Please don't mention Paige if Tessa asks. As far as she knows, that relationship ended months ago. I'm working on the timing, need to secure the promotion first. Love, Brett. To Lynette Caldwell, from Brett Caldwell. Subject: Christmas. Mom, stop pushing me to end it with Paige. I will, but I need her income right now. The consulting business isn't as profitable as I made it sound. Her salary keeps us afloat. Once I move up at work, I can cut her loose properly. She's not the one. Tessa is. You know that. Just give me time. I read that email 3 times, each word burning deeper into my consciousness. Her salary keeps us afloat. I'd been funding my own betrayal. Every paycheck I'd deposited into our joint account had paid for his double life. The trips to Connecticut. The gifts for Tessa. The maintenance of his elaborate lie. My phone buzzed. A text from Harper: Can we talk? I miss you. I stared at it, remembering our fight 3 weeks ago. Remembering how defensive I'd been. How certain that she was wrong. I'm sorry, I texted back. You were right. About everything. Her response was immediate: coming over. Don't move. I didn't move. Couldn't move. I sat at that dining table with Brett's laptop open in front of me, downloading everything onto a thumb drive I found in my desk drawer. Photos. Videos. Messages. Emails. Bank statements from our joint account showing charges at Connecticut restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores. Evidence of every lie he'd told, every moment he'd stolen, every dollar he'd taken from me to fund his real relationship. The apartment door burst open 40 minutes later. Harper took one look at my face and knew. Oh, honey. His parents aren't dead, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. They live in Connecticut. He goes there every weekend to see them and his actual girlfriend. Her name is Tessa. They've been together for 3 years. The same 3 years he's been with me. Harper sat down beside me, her hand finding mine. Show me. I showed her everything. Every message. Every photo. Every email where he called me convenient, easy, trusting to the point of stupidity. That son of a— Harper's voice shook with rage. Paige, you need to leave. Right now. Pack your things and get out before he comes home. No. What do you mean, no? I looked at her, feeling something cold and hard settling into place where my heart used to be. I'm not leaving. This is my apartment. My name is on the lease. I've been paying 2/3 of the rent for 2 years because he said his consulting business was going through a rough patch. Then kick him out. I will. But not yet. I ejected the thumb drive and closed his laptop, placing it exactly where he'd left it. First, I'm going to make sure he loses everything. The way he tried to take everything from me. Harper studied my face. What are you planning? Revenge. That night, Brett came home at his usual time, completely unaware that his perfect double life had been exposed. I heard his key in the lock and felt my body tense, preparing for a confrontation I wasn't ready to have yet. Hey, babe. He kissed my cheek, his hand sliding down my spine in that familiar way that used to make me melt. Now it made my skin crawl. How was your day? Fine. I kept my voice light, easy. How was yours? Exhausting. Henderson is being impossible about the quarterly reports. He loosened his tie and headed for the bedroom. I'm thinking about taking a shower. Want to join me? 6 hours ago, I would have said yes. Would have stripped off my clothes and let the water and his hands wash away the stress of the day. Now, the thought made me physically ill. I'm actually in the middle of making dinner, I called back. Rain check? You're the best. His voice carried from the bedroom, casual and content. What would I do without you? Probably manage just fine with Tessa, I thought viciously, but said nothing. Over dinner, pasta that tasted like ash in my mouth, Brett talked about his day. Client meetings. Deadlines. Office politics. All delivered with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been caught, never been questioned, never been challenged. I might need to go to Chicago this weekend, he mentioned casually. Henderson wants to meet in person about the new campaign. Chicago. His code word for Connecticut. His excuse for abandoning me while he lived his real life. That's fine, I said, twirling pasta on my fork. Harper and I were talking about having a girls' weekend anyway. Perfect. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. See? We're so good at understanding each other's needs. Understanding. That word again. The one he used to make me feel special while actually meaning gullible. After dinner, he wanted to watch a movie. We settled on the couch, his arm around my shoulders, my body rigid against his in ways he didn't notice. Halfway through, his hand started wandering, beneath my shirt, along my ribs, heading toward my bra. Brett, I'm not really in the mood tonight. He pulled back, surprised. I'd never refused him before. You okay? Just tired. Long day at work. Okay. He kissed my temple. No pressure. We have all the time in the world. All the time in the world. As if we had a future. As if the clock on our relationship wasn't counting down to 0. He fell asleep beside me that night, one arm thrown across my waist in his usual possessive way. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe, feeling the weight of his arm like chains. How many nights had I fallen asleep like this, feeling safe and loved? How many mornings had I woken up grateful to have him beside me? All of it was a lie. Every moment. Every word. Every touch. The man sleeping next to me was a stranger. Worse than a stranger, he was a predator who'd identified my weaknesses and exploited them with surgical precision. My compassion. My trust. My capacity for understanding. He'd weaponized every good quality I possessed and turned them against me. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated what I'd do when I finally saw him clearly. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Brett left for the office with a kiss that tasted like betrayal, completely unaware that his perfect double life was about to collapse. The moment the door closed behind him, I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Lynette Caldwell had a robust online presence. Facebook showed photos of her at charity galas, country club events, family gatherings. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of polished appearance that spoke of old money and careful maintenance. Her Facebook profile listed her workplace, the Heritage Foundation, a nonprofit focused on children's literacy. She was the director. Her office number was publicly available on the foundation's website. I stared at that number for 10 minutes before I found the courage to dial. Heritage Foundation, how may I direct your call? Lynette Caldwell, please. May I ask who's calling? I took a breath. Her future daughter-in-law. The pause was sharp. Heavy. One moment. Classical music played in my ear for 30 seconds before a crisp, cultured voice answered, "This is Lynette Caldwell." "Mrs. Caldwell, my name is Paige Montgomery. I'm engaged to your son Brett." Silenced, "I know you think he's engaged to someone named Tessa," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "But I'm calling to inform you that he's been lying to at least one of us. Probably both." "I don't know who you are," Lynette said slowly, "or what kind of game this is. Your son told me you died in a car accident 3 years ago. I have photos of him with Tessa dated throughout our entire relationship. I have messages where he calls me convenient and discusses ending our engagement once his promotion comes through. I have emails to you where he says my salary keeps him afloat while he waits to cut me loose. I'm not playing games, Mrs. Caldwell. I'm ending them." More silence. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. "This is absurd. My son would never check his Instagram. He keeps it private, but I have his password. The username is Brettsy_Caldwell87. Look at the photos he's hidden from public view. Look at the dates. Look at everything he's been hiding from both of us. Then call me back." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking. Harper had arrived an hour earlier and was sitting across from me, eyes wide. "You just called his mother." "First domino," I said. "Now I call Tessa." Finding Tessa's number was easy. It was saved in Brett's phone under T work. Settled, I dialed before I could overthink it. "Hello?" Her voice was higher than I'd expected. Younger sounding. "Tessa? This is Paige Montgomery. I think we need to talk about Brett Caldwell." "Who?" "Brett Caldwell. Your boyfriend of 3 years. The one who's been living with me in Brooklyn, sleeping in my bed every night, and planning to marry me in 4 months." The sharp intake of breath told me everything. "That's not he said he broke up with. He lies, Tessa. That's what he does. To both of us. Should we compare notes, or would you prefer to stay in the dark?" 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Midtown, watching a woman with long brown hair and red-rimmed eyes walk through the door. She looked exactly like her Instagram photos, but smaller somehow. More fragile. We sat down across from each other, two women who should have been enemies but were instead victims of the same man. "How long?" Tessa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "3 years. You, 3 years." She laughed bitterly. "He told me he worked in the city during the week. That's why we only saw each other on weekends. He said living together full-time would hurt his career prospects, make him look too settled to his boss. He told me his business trips were mandatory. That his consulting firm required weekly travel." "Consulting firm?" Tessa's eyebrows rose. "He works in marketing at a mid-sized firm in Connecticut. Has for 2 years. Another lie. Of course. Why would he stop at just one? Did he tell you about his parents?" I asked. "Of course. I've met them dozens of times." There she stopped. "Wait. What did he tell you about his parents?" That they died in a car accident when he was 22. Tessa's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Warren and Lynette are alive. They live 20 minutes from my apartment. We have Sunday dinners with them every week when Brett visits. Sunday dinners. While I sat alone in our Brooklyn apartment, believing he was at client meetings, I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence I'd compiled. Messages. Photos. Bank statements. Emails to his mother. Tessa read them with tears streaming down her face. He called you convenient. He called me. She scrolled to another message. He told his friend I was a safe option his parents approved of. We're both just things he's using. Not anymore, I said firmly. What are we going to do? Tessa looked up at me, her tears drying, something hard forming behind her eyes. We're going to destroy him. How? She pulled out her phone. I have access to his Connecticut apartment. His real apartment, where he keeps things he thinks no one in New York will ever see. Documents. More photos. Probably more evidence of more lies. Can you get them? Can you keep him in the city this weekend? I thought about our wedding invitations, already printed and addressed. About the venue we'd booked. About the 200 guests expecting to see us get married in 3 months. I can do better than that, I said slowly. I can give us the perfect stage for his downfall. Tessa leaned forward. Tell me. My phone rang at 4 p.m. Unknown Connecticut numbered, I answered on the second ring. Hello? This is Lynette Caldwell. Her voice had changed. Still cultured, still controlled, but with an edge of something raw beneath the polish. We need to meet. When? Tomorrow. There's a train from Grand Central to Greenwich. I'll have my driver pick you up at the station at noon. Mrs. Caldwell, call me Lynette. She paused. And Paige? Bring everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence you have. Because my son is a liar, and I'm done protecting him. The line went dead. Harper was staring at me from across the room. His mother wants to meet you, tomorrow. In Connecticut, this is crazy. Harper stopped. Actually, this is brilliant. You're building a case. I'm building a nuclear bomb. I looked at the thumb drive sitting on my coffee table, containing 3 years of Brett's lies. And in 3 months, at our wedding, in front of everyone who matters to him, I'm going to detonate it. That night, Brett came home exhausted from work. He dropped his briefcase by the door and pulled me into a kiss that lasted longer than usual. I needed that, he murmured against my lips. Henderson was impossible today. Made me question why I even stay at this job. Because you need my income, I thought. Because Tessa's salary as a teacher doesn't cover your lifestyle. Because you're a con artist who needs multiple sources of funding. Poor baby, I said instead, my voice syrupy sweet. Why don't you take a shower? I'll order your favorite Thai food. You're the best. He kissed me again. Seriously, Paige. What did I do to deserve you? You lied. You cheated. You stole. You manipulated. You turned my trust into a weapon and my love into a joke. Lucky, I guess, I said with a smile that felt like glass. After you went to shower, I stood in our kitchen and felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just cold, calculating focus. Brett thought he was the con artist in this relationship. He thought he'd successfully juggled 2 women, 2 lives, 2 futures without consequences. He had no idea that the trusting, understanding, convenient girlfriend he'd been playing for 3 years had just become his worst nightmare. The train to Greenwich cost $43. I paid for it from my personal account, the one Brett didn't have access to, the one I'd kept separate on Harper's insistence years ago. Always have escape money, she'd told me back then. Just in case. I'd laughed at her paranoia. Now I was grateful for it. A black Mercedes waited for me at the station, driver holding a sign with my name. We drove through neighborhoods that screamed old money, sprawling estates behind iron gates, manicured lawns, the kind of wealth that doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. The country club was exactly what I expected. White columns. Perfectly trimmed hedges. Men in golf attire discussing business over martinis. Women in tennis whites who'd never broken a sweat in their lives. Lynette waited for me in a private dining room overlooking the 18th hole. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her hair styled in that effortless way that requires significant effort to achieve. Paige. She stood as I entered, extending her hand. Her grip was firm. "Thank you for coming, thank you for believing me, sit." She gestured to the chair across from her. I ordered tea. "I hope that's acceptable." We sat in silence while a server poured Earl Grey into delicate china cups. The moment he left, Lynette's polished facade cracked. "My son is a liar," she said without preamble. "I've known since he was 15. Caught him maintaining 3 different social circles with 3 completely different personalities. He told the athletic kids he was training for football. Told the academics he was headed for MIT. Told the theater crowd he was planning to move to LA after graduation. What did you do?" "Nothing." Shame colored her voice. His father and I convinced ourselves it was normal teenage behavior. That he'd grow out of it. She took a sip of tea. "He didn't. He just got better at it. You knew about Tessa. Of course. They've been dating since college. Nice girl. Teacher. Exactly the kind of woman Warren and I hoped he'd marry." She set down her cup carefully. "We had no idea about you until yesterday. He told me you were dead." Lynette's hand trembled slightly. That's a new low, even for him." "How many others have there been?" "That I know of?" 4. There was Rebecca in college. He maintained relationships with her and Tessa simultaneously for 2 years. Then Alyssa after graduation, she found out and filed a restraining order. Then Jennifer, she's the one who discovered he'd stolen money from her checking account. The charges were dropped when Warren paid her back and made her sign an NDA. She paused, meeting my eyes. "You're the 5th woman I know about." "But Paige? You're the first one who's fought back." "I'm not fighting back." I pulled out my phone and the thumb drive. "I'm burning his entire world to ash." Lynette's smile was sharp. "Show me everything that I did. Every message. Every photo. Every email where Brett discussed his plans to cut me loose once he secured his promotion. Every bank statement showing him using my money to fund his Connecticut life." Lynette's expression grew colder with each revelation. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. "He's getting nothing from us. Not another dollar. Warren needs to see this. There's more." I hesitated. "He's been telling people at work that his parents are dead. Using it for sympathy. Getting extensions on projects because he's grieving. One of his colleagues sent flowers to our apartment last year for the anniversary of your death." Lynette's laugh was bitter. "Of course he did. Using our fictional deaths for professional gain. She stopped. "What are you planning to do with all this?" "We're getting married in 3 months. 200 guests. Most of them are my friends and family, but there are people from his office, some business contacts, colleagues who believe his dead parents' story. You're going through with the wedding?" "I'm showing up." "He's showing up. Everyone's showing up." I leaned forward. "And then, right before we say I do, I'm going to expose every single lie he's ever told." In front of everyone who matters to him, Lynette studied me for a long moment. "That's vicious. He earned it, good." She pulled out her phone. "Then let me help. I have access to things you don't. His childhood records. Documents from the other women. Evidence Warren and I have been collecting for years, hoping he'd finally straighten out." She looked up. You want to destroy him? Let's make sure there's nothing left standing. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in performance art. Every morning, I woke up beside Brett and pretended everything was normal. Every evening, I came home and played the role of devoted fiancé with Academy Award-worthy precision. How was your day? I'd ask as he walked through the door, exhausting. Henderson is pushing for the Miller account. He'd kiss my cheek, his hand sliding familiarly down my back. At least I come home to you. I'd smile. Lean into his touch. Respond with all the warmth and affection he expected, and every night, after he fell asleep, I'd slip out of bed and add to the evidence file. Screenshots of his location data showing weekend trips to Connecticut. Credit card charges at restaurants Tessa had confirmed they'd visited together. Text messages to his friends where he bragged about having it all figured out. Tessa was doing the same from her end. She'd been to his Connecticut apartment, the one I'd never known existed, and photographed everything. His closet full of clothes I'd never seen. A second laptop with emails discussing his city situation. A drawer full of jewelry receipts for gifts I'd never received. He has photos of us on his nightstand there, she told me during one of our secret phone calls. Professional ones. Like we're actually engaged. He has photos of us here too. I looked at the frame on our dresser, Brett and me at the beach last summer, both smiling like we had forever. Guess we're both his perfect life. Just in different zip codes, not for much longer. Lynette called twice a week with updates. She'd hired a private investigator who'd uncovered even more damaging information. Brett had been fired from his previous job for sleeping with a married coworker, not because of poor performance like he'd told both me and Tessa. He had student loans he'd never mentioned, hidden in accounts neither of us knew about. He owed back rent to 2 former roommates who'd given up trying to collect. The man I raised is a con artist, Lynette said during one call, her voice heavy with something between shame and rage. And Warren and I enabled it by cleaning up his messes. Not anymore. Whatever you need from us, you have it. Meanwhile, Brett remained blissfully unaware. He came home every evening with stories about work. Kissed me goodnight with the same familiar tenderness. Made plans for our future like it was guaranteed. I was thinking, he said one night as we lay in bed, his arm possessive across my waist, maybe we should honeymoon in Bali. I've always wanted to go. That sounds amazing. I traced patterns on his chest, feeling nothing. How would we afford it? I'm getting that promotion soon. Henderson basically promised. We'll have plenty of money. The promotion. The one he'd told Tessa would let him cut me loose properly. The one he'd been dangling in front of both of us like a carrot, promising everything would change once he achieved it. I love you, he murmured, already half asleep. I love you too, I lied. If you've ever had to sleep next to someone while planning their complete destruction, you understand the particular kind of strength that requires. Type I survived in the comments if you've ever had to pretend everything was fine while your world was burning. 2 weeks before the wedding, Lynette sent me a package via courier. Inside was a manila folder containing the private investigator's full report. Brett's history made me physically ill. College, dated 3 women simultaneously. When Rebecca found out about Tessa, he convinced her that Tessa was just a friend from high school while telling Tessa that Rebecca was a study partner with a crush he was trying to let down gently. First job, began affair with his married boss's wife. When discovered, convinced the boss he'd been the one pursued and manipulated. Got fired anyway but managed to avoid legal consequences. Second job, stole client information to start his own consulting business. Business failed within 6 months. Debts were quietly paid off by Warren and Lynette, roommates, left town owing 3 months' rent to 2 different people. Changed his number and blocked them on social media. Tessa, convinced her that marriage was coming as soon as he got stable in his career. Used her teacher's salary to fund his lifestyle while maintaining he was waiting for the right moment. Me, target acquired when he realized I made significantly more than Tessa. Moved in quickly to reduce his living expenses. Maintained relationships specifically for financial stability while planning to upgrade once his career improved. The report included testimonials from 3 previous girlfriends, all telling similar stories. All describing the same pattern: intense initial romance, quick cohabitation, gradual financial exploitation, eventual abandonment. One woman, Jennifer, the one who'd filed charges, had written a particularly damaging statement. Brett Caldwell is a predator who identifies women's weaknesses and exploits them systematically. He told me my compassion was what made me special while using it to drain my savings account. He told me my independence was attractive while isolating me from friends who questioned his behavior. When I finally discovered he'd stolen over $15,000 from me, he convinced his parents I was a scorned ex-girlfriend making false accusations. They paid me to go away. I took the money because I needed it to rebuild my life. But I want whoever reads this to know, Brett Caldwell is dangerous. Not because he's violent, but because he makes you complicit in your own destruction. I read that statement 3 times, feeling each word like a mirror held up to my own experience. Harper found me at my kitchen table that night, the report spread in front of me, tears streaming down my face. "Hey." She sat beside me. "You okay?" "I'm not special." The words came out broken. I thought I was different. That what we had was real. But I'm just another Mark. Another woman who fell for the same lines, the same tactics, the same manipulations. Paige. He has a playbook. A literal pattern he follows. And I fell for every single move. Harper pulled me into a hug. "You're not a Mark. You're a victim. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Because victims fight back." She pulled away, holding my shoulders. "And honey, you're about to fight back harder than he ever imagined possible. 7 days before our wedding, Brett came home with news. I got it. He burst through the door, grinning wider than I'd seen in months. The promotion. Senior management, effective immediately. Henderson just told me. That's incredible. I threw my arms around him, playing my part. We should celebrate. We should. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer. Champagne? Dinner out, let's stay in. I kissed him, tasting the lie on my own tongue. I want to celebrate with just you. We ordered expensive takeout, on my credit card, naturally. Brett talked nonstop about his new role, his increased salary, the corner office he'd finally earned. This changes everything, he said, pouring champagne into glasses. We can upgrade the apartment. Take that Bali honeymoon. Start thinking about buying a place. All the things he'd been promising Tessa for 3 years. All the future he'd been dangling in front of both of us, waiting for the perfect moment to choose. To us, Brett raised his glass. To our future. To truth, I said, clinking my glass against his. To everything coming to light. He didn't catch the double meaning. Just smiled and drank, completely oblivious. That night, he wanted to celebrate physically. His hands moved over me with renewed confidence, the promotion apparently making him feel entitled to more than usual. I've been waiting for this, he murmured against my neck, his body pressing mine into the mattress. Once we're married, once I have this new position, everything will be perfect, perfect. The word made my stomach turn, but I let him believe it. Let him think his plan was working. Let him touch me with hands that had touched another woman every weekend for 3 years. As he moved above me, I memorized every detail. Not for pleasure, I felt nothing but cold calculation, but for evidence. For the moment when I'd stand in front of 200 people and describe exactly who Brett Caldwell really was. I love you, he gasped, his control slipping. I know, I replied, because I couldn't force the lie out one more time. Afterward, he fell asleep with that satisfied smile men get when they think they've won. His arm draped across my waist, possessive even in sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting down the days. 7 more nights of this. 7 more mornings of waking up beside a stranger. 7 more days of performance before the final ACT.my phone buzzed silently on the nightstand. Text from Tessa, he just texted me saying he can't wait to see me this weekend. Still planning the business trip to Chicago. Another text from Lynette, Warren and I will be there. We've prepared our own statement for your guests. Our son's reckoning is long overdue. I looked at Brett sleeping peacefully beside me, completely unaware that his perfect double life was about to implode in the most public way possible. Sweet dreams, I whispered to the darkness. Enjoy them while they last. Monday morning, Brett left for work wearing his new senior management smile. Don't forget we have the final cake tasting tonight, he called from the door. I'll meet you there at 6, I promised. The moment he left, I called the venue. I need to make some last-minute additions to our setup, I told the event coordinator. A projection screen with audio capabilities. And I'll need to ensure we have strong Wi-Fi throughout the space. For a slideshow? She asked. That's lovely. Something like that. Next, I called my lawyer. Yes, I'd hired a lawyer 3 days after discovering Brett's lies. She'd been helping me quietly separate our finances, document the theft from our joint account, and prepare for what came next. The civil suit is ready, she confirmed. Once you give me the signal Saturday, I'll file everything Monday morning. Theft, fraud, breach of contract for the joint account. We have documentation of over $30,000 he took from you over 3 years. $30,000. I'd been funding my own betrayal to the tune of almost $1,000 a month. Perfect. My voice was steady. I want him to wake up Monday morning with more problems than he can solve. He will. Trust me. Tuesday was the rehearsal dinner. Brett's colleagues from work attended, the ones who believed his dead parents' story. They offered condolences I accepted with practiced grace. It's so wonderful that you had Paige to support you through your grief, one woman said to Brett. She's been my rock, he replied, squeezing my hand. I don't know what I would have done without her. Tessa texted me from Connecticut, he just called. Said he's stuck at the office. Can you confirm? I glanced at Brett, laughing with his coworkers, his phone face down on the table as always. Can confirm he's at rehearsal dinner, I texted back. Told you he's working late? Said there's an emergency project. Might not be able to visit this weekend. My jaw clenched. Even now, even this close to the wedding, he was still playing both sides. Still keeping his options open. Still convinced he could maintain both relationships indefinitely. You okay, babe? Brett's hand touched my shoulder. You look upset, just overwhelmed. I leaned into him, letting everyone see the devoted fiancé. Big day coming up. The biggest. He kissed my temple. And worth every moment of stress. Wednesday, my mother called in tears. I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. You've found a good man. The guilt of what was coming hit me hard. My family had no idea what Saturday would bring. They dressed up, traveled, spent money all to witness what they thought would be a beautiful wedding. Mom, I need to tell you something. What is it? I hesitated. But no, this needed to be public. Needed to be witnessed. Needed to be undeniable, nothing. Just, I love you. And I'm sorry for what's coming. Sorry for what? You'll see Saturday. Just, trust that I'm doing what's right. Thursday, Lynette called with her final report. Warren and I have prepared a statement. We'll be sitting in the back row. When you're ready, I'll stand up and confirm everything you say about us being alive. You don't have to do this. He's still your son. He's a man who needs to face consequences he's avoided his entire life. Her voice was firm. We failed him by protecting him from those consequences. We're not failing the women he's hurt anymore. Friday night, our last night before the wedding, Brett suggested we spend it apart. Tradition, he said with that charming smile. I'll stay at a hotel. Build anticipation for tomorrow. Where will you stay? The Marriott by the venue. Just one night. The Marriott. I checked his location after he left. He wasn't at the Marriott. He was on a train to Connecticut. One last visit to Tessa before he married me. One final night with his real girlfriend before committing to his convenient one. Tessa confirmed it with a photo, Brett asleep in her bed, his arm around her waist in that same possessive way he'd held me 100 times. Last one, she texted. Tomorrow he loses everything. I sat alone in our apartment, my apartment, really, since I'd been paying most of the rent, and felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just cold, focused determination. Tomorrow, Brett Caldwell would wake up thinking he'd successfully navigated to the finish line of his elaborate con. Tomorrow, he'd put on his tuxedo and wait at that altar, believing he'd won. Tomorrow, I'd destroy him. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. Sunny, 72 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. The kind of day people pay extra for when booking wedding venues. I woke up alone in my apartment, our apartment, though not for much longer, and felt surprisingly calm. No nervousness. No second thoughts. Just clarity. Harper arrived at 8 with coffee and bagels, though I couldn't eat. Last chance to back out, she said, watching me closely. We can cancel everything. Send everyone home. You don't have to go through with this. Yes, I do. I took a sip of coffee. He needs to face this publicly. Needs to see that actions have consequences. If I just break up with him privately, he'll spin it. Make himself the victim. Move on to the next woman with a new set of lies. You're terrifying when you're focused. Harper smiled. Remind me never to cross you. You could never. You're the one who warned me. I squeezed her hand. You're the one who saw through him when I couldn't. My mother arrived at 9, already crying happy tears. My baby's getting married. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Mom. I know you're nervous, sweetheart. Every bride is. But Brett is a good man. You found someone who truly loves you. I said nothing. Let her believe it for 3 more hours. Let everyone believe it until the moment I shattered the illusion. The photographer arrived at 10. Hair and makeup at 10:30. My bridesmaids, Harper and 2 cousins, helped me into my dress at 11:30. The dress was beautiful. Simple, elegant, white. The kind of dress a woman wears when she believes in fairy tales and happy endings. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked calm. Composed. Ready to become someone's wife. She was actually ready to commit murder, not literally, but close enough. You look stunning, Harper whispered, squeezing my shoulder. He's not going to know what hit him. That's the idea. The church was exactly as I'd requested. White roses everywhere. Gold accents. Soft lighting. 200 guests filling the pews, dressed in their finest, ready to witness what they thought would be a beautiful union. Brett stood at the altar in his tuxedo, looking genuinely happy. Nervous, but happy. He thought he'd made it. Thought he'd successfully conned his way to a guaranteed income stream and social respectability. He had no idea his world was about to end. I waited in the back room, listening to the string quartet play. My father appeared at the door, tears in his eyes. Ready, sweetheart? More than ready. We walked to the entrance. The doors opened. The music changed to the wedding march. 200 faces turned to look at me. I saw Brett's colleagues from work. My family. Friends who'd traveled from across the country. In the very back row, partially hidden, I saw Lynette and Warren Caldwell, Brett's very much alive parents, watching with grim determination. I walked down that aisle with my head high, my hand steady on my father's arm. Each step brought me closer to the moment I'd been planning for 3 weeks. We reached the altar. Brett took my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles in that familiar way. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "Thank you," I replied, my voice steady. The officiant opened his book. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Stop. The word cut through the ceremony like a blade through water, clean, final, absolute. Confused murmurs filled the church. Brett's smile faltered. "Paige, what?" "I'm not marrying you, Brett." I turned to face the crowd, my voice carrying across the stunned silence. "But thank you all for coming. You're here because you believed we were in love. Because I believed we were in love. But this man has been lying to me, to all of us, for 3 years. Paige, this isn't funny." Brett's voice had an edge of panic. "Your parents aren't dead." I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the projection screen behind us. Photos of Warren and Lynette Caldwell appeared, smiling at a charity gala dated 2 months ago. Time-stamped. Undeniable. They're alive and well in Connecticut. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brett's face drained of all color. "You've been living a double life with another woman." More photos, Brett and Tessa at restaurants, on beaches, in bed together. Every image time-stamped throughout our entire relationship. "Her name is Tessa. You see her every weekend while telling me you're at business conferences in Chicago." "This is insane," Brett started. "You've been stealing from our joint account." Bank statements appeared on screen, highlighted charges circled in red. Hotels in Connecticut. Jewelry I never received. Romantic dinners I was never invited to. $30,000 over 3 years, funded by my salary. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Harper's arm went around my shoulders from where she stood with the other bridesmaids. And the best part? I clicked to the next slide. His mother is here today. "Would you like to stand up, Lynette?" In the back of the church, impeccably dressed and wearing an expression of cold fury, Brett's very much alive mother rose from her seat. The silence was absolute. "Hello, son," Lynette's voice carried across the church. "Surprised to see me at your wedding? You probably should have mentioned it was happening. Paige and I have had several enlightening conversations about your behavior." Brett looked like he might vomit. "There's more." The side door opened and Tessa walked in, beautiful in a dress that matched my bridesmaids. "Hi, Brett. Surprised to see me too? Since you told me you had a business emergency this weekend?" 200 people watched as Brett's mouth opened and closed, no sound emerging. I handed the microphone to Tessa. "Would you like to share?" She smiled, brittle and broken and strong. "Brett and I have been dating for 3 years. He told me he worked in the city during the week but came home to Connecticut on weekends. He told me his job was demanding, that living together would hurt his career prospects. He told me he loved me." Her voice cracked. "He told me we'd get married someday. Just not yet." "Please," Brett finally found his voice. "This is a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding." I pulled out a stack of papers. "These are transcripts of your text messages. Would you like me to read the one where you called me so trusting it's almost sad? Or the one where you told your friend you were milking the situation until something better came along?" His face had gone from white to gray to green. "I also have documentation of your previous relationships." More photos appeared on screen. 3 other women in the past 5 years. All told similar lies. Jennifer filed a police report for theft. Alyssa took out a restraining order. Rebecca discovered you were cheating and ended up in therapy for 2 years. Warren stood up beside his wife. And as his father, I want everyone here to know that Lynette and I enabled this behavior by cleaning up his messes. We paid off his debts. Silenced his victims with NDAs. protected him from consequences he richly deserved. No more. Our son needs to face what he's done. The security guard I'd hired, yes, I'd hired security, stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is my wedding. This is my wedding, I corrected. You're just the cautionary tale. Now get out before I have you arrested for fraud. That joint account you've been stealing from? My lawyer is filing charges Monday morning. Brett looked around the room, searching for allies. He found none. Even his groomsmen colleagues he'd lied to about his family were backing away. Paige, please, he reached for my hand. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't come back to the apartment, your things are already in storage. The locks are changed. We're done. He left, escorted by security, leaving behind 200 stunned guests and a church full of flowers that suddenly felt like victory. My mother appeared at my side, tears streaming down her face. Sweetheart, I had no idea. I know, Mom. That's why I had to do it this way. So everyone would know. So he couldn't lie his way out of it. Harper raised her voice to the crowd. Since we're all here and there's a full bar at the reception venue, who wants to come celebrate Paige's freedom? The crowd erupted in applause. The wedding reception turned into the best party of my life. 200 people who'd come expecting a ceremony stayed to celebrate my escape. By Monday morning, Brett's social media had exploded. Women he'd dated were sharing their stories. His promotion was rescinded when his boss discovered the dead parent lie he'd been using for sympathy and deadline extensions. Tessa filed theft charges for money he'd taken from her accounts over the years. My lawyer filed civil charges for the $30,000 he'd stolen from our joint account. The evidence was overwhelming. His parents cut off all financial support, meaning he couldn't pay legal fees. Within 2 months, Brett Caldwell's carefully constructed life had collapsed entirely. As for me, I kept the apartment. Kept my job. Kept my dignity. Harper and I danced until dawn at that reception, surrounded by people who actually loved me. Tessa and I became unlikely friends, bonding over shared trauma and successful revenge. She's dating a genuine person now, someone who doesn't maintain a double life. Lynette texts me occasionally with updates. Brett moved to another state, apparently trying to start fresh. But his reputation follows him. The internet is forever, and his exposure went viral. But here's what I learned from all of this: love without trust is just performance. Being understanding doesn't mean being blind. The right person will never make you question your worth or hide you from the people who matter. If you've ever stayed with someone because leaving felt harder than staying, if you've ever ignored warning signs because you'd invested too much time, if you've ever been called understanding when you were really just being used, I see you. You deserve better. You deserve truth. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge with Alice for more stories about choosing yourself over convenient lies. Drop a comment about a time you had to walk away from someone you loved. Your story matters, and this community is here to support you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. The first time. Not 3 years later at an altar surrounded by evidence of their betrayals. And remember, the best revenge isn't just exposing someone's lies. It's building a life so genuine, so honest, so full of real love that their memory becomes nothing more than a story you tell to help others avoid the same mistakes. Choose yourself. Always choose yourself. Because you deserve someone who chooses you back publicly, honestly, and without reservation. Until next time, this is Paige Montgomery reminding you that your worth was never determined by someone else's inability to see it.